Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, boys and girls, and all around the land, welcome to the Ground and Pound cast. Today we're here to break down UFC 326 of all of its glory. I'm joined today by Vince, the world's okayest blue belt, and of course you have me, the soothsayer of MMA myself, Nostradamus, guiding this episode. Welcome to the pod, Vince. Tell the people at home hello.
People at home, hello. And to clarify, that's jiu-jitsu blue belt. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm doing some stolen valor karate stuff. So, yeah, we just got through watching UFC 326 headlined by Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway for the BMF title. Roy.
That is Mother Flounder.
Yes. Man, let's talk about this fight. What did you think about it?
Man, I am all about this fight. I did not expect Max Holloway to go out there and be able to grapple at a high level. That was something I didn't see in his toolkit. I thought if it went to the ground, which I expected it to, that Oliveira was going to submit him. Max showed grit. He showed heart. He showed why he was the BMF, and Charles demonstrated why he was worthy to take the crown.
Yeah, so this fight showed some things that I definitely was not expecting. So a little side note before we deep dive into this particular fight. Most events, just about every single event, we post our predictions, or we talk about them on the podcast. Sometimes we post them on the official Facebook page for the Ground and Pound cast. And this was not the best showing for me personally. I only had 2 out of 5. So I had 2 correct, 3 incorrect. And Nostradamus definitely earned his title being the soothsayer of the MMA world because he got all 5 right.
For the second time since the start of the year, buddy.
Yeah, and the only time I've ever gotten all 5 right was the same time you got all 5 right. So you're definitely in the lead here. Rick is just a little bit behind. But the reason why I want to bring this up during this fight is because of the 3 that I got wrong, 2 of them I did admit could go either way. I was kind of like 51-49. I was almost 50-50 on. I'd just give like a slight edge to the other guy, and I was wrong on both of those. But when I say it's that close, it's not like I'm not going to beat myself up over something like that when I do things to toss up. I was actually fairly confident, not super confident, but I was fairly confident that Max is going to win this one for one fact, and I was very, very, very wrong on that fact. So last week I said that the way Max Holloway fights, he's going to stick and jab and move. He's not going to allow himself to get taken down by Oliveira, not so much that he has a good takedown defense. And by takedown defense, I mean like sprawling and underhooking and whizzers and stuff like that to keep it standing, but really staying out of the range from the grappling. And that is probably the most incorrect statement I said all of last week's episode because Charles Oliveira just very quickly closed that distance, got Holloway up against the cage, took him down, and that was the story of all 5 rounds.
Yeah, Oliveira manhandled Max from being on the feet to the ground. He had what do you call that sweep he was doing? It was the same one every time.
I'd probably have to go back and look. I mean, a lot of times whenever you have like a standing entanglement and then you do some type of foot sweep, we just call it a foot sweep. I mean, I would have to really look and break it down. I wasn't really looking for the names of any particular moves he was doing. I know that a lot of times whenever you're in a standing clinch like that and you do some type of takedown, there's some type of judo move that you could attribute it to it or, label it with. But I wasn't really looking with that kind of an eye to figure that out. But a lot of times it was foot sweeps, or sometimes he would basically just crawl up on his back and just do a back take standing. So that's basically what I remember from it, was him sometimes jumping on the back when they're standing, or he would do some type of foot sweep. Now, as far as like any kind of particular name sweep, I'd have to go back and watch and like look for it in that kind of way. I wasn't really paying attention to that angle.
Judo throw. He would just loop his leg around behind Max's and hug him all the way over it and down.
Yeah, I think you could just probably label that like a foot sweep, or maybe like a foot sweep combination with a mat return. Like if you take their back standing and you kind of like pick them up and drop them down to the mat, or you kind of trip their foot out to get them down from like a standing back take. Some people call that a mat return. So it just kind of depends. Like I said, I have to go back and look, but I just call them foot sweeps to keep it simple.
Okay. Either way, it was simple and effective, and it kept Max from getting back to staying on his feet and being able to use his strengths. But I was really impressed by Max and his jiu-jitsu skills. You know, he got promoted to black belt for his defense in this.
Yeah, and that is a little weird to me as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I've never heard of anyone getting it by losing but showing good defense. If that was the case, I'd probably be a black belt by now. I'm not. But I'm not going to question, I don't know what happens in their gym and what kind of skills he showed up to this point. But
how much he paid Jake Shields for this.
Right. Yeah, maybe it was something like that. But no, I will say as a grappler, I could tell that he was in some really, really bad spots. Keep in mind, Charles Oliveira, as we said multiple times in this podcast, has the UFC record for most finishes in UFC history, but also most submissions in UFC history. So that means he has a very strong submission offense game, and he was throwing everything he had at Max Holloway. He was getting chokes. He was getting neck cranks. He had a full body lock. He was controlling Max in ways where he would have finished 99% of the roster. So whether we want to question Max Holloway's black belt acumen or not, regardless of that, you have to at least admit Max Holloway did show he does have good submission defense here, because those positions he was in were really, really bad positions, very bad positions, and he was able to stop the submissions from happening by getting the 2-on-1 grips on the hands and creating the right separation, turning the head the right way, slipping the chin under, doing the little small things you need to do to not get finished, even if you did get stuck in the bad spot the whole time. He was able to do everything correctly, and that's why he was able to push it all the way to a decision.
So does this count as your definition of anti-grappling if he's on the ground and resisting, or is that only for when you're trying to take someone down?
I mean, anti-grappling is not really an official term. I typically use
I said for your definition.
Right. I typically use that for resisting takedowns mostly. I mean, whenever you're on the ground and you have someone attacking you with submissions, you have to use grappling skills to stop it from happening. So I would really just consider that grappling just on the defensive side. When I say anti-grappling, that is doing stuff to keep it standing to where you don't want to grapple. And it technically
Max definitely failed an anti-grappling on this one.
Right. See, anti-grappling is technically grappling, but it's grappling in a way that you're trying to dictate the fight to keep it on the feet. So I talked about the fight a few weeks ago with Sean Strickland against Fluffy is a great example of what I'm talking about. Whenever they got into a clinch and he knew, okay, I don't want to get taken down, so I'm going to make sure I get an underhook. I'm going to turn my hips in this direction, and then I'll be able to turn into and to push against the cage. I'm going to be able to push away and then go back to the striking. That right there is anti-grappling.
Okay, I got you. So let me ask you this. This set both men on very different courses for the future of their career. Max and Charles were both potentially in title contention if they won this. So before we go to the winner, what do you think happens next for Max?
It's a really good question. When I look at the UFC rankings here, I look at other people that are ranked close to him. He's already had a shot at the champion and lost. Now he just had a shot, not a shot, but a defense against the new BMF title and lost. So that leaves him with a few opponents here. When I look at the top handful of names, so you got the champion he's already lost to. Justin Gaethje is on the route to having that fight with Taporia. That's already booked. We'll talk about that later. Arman Tsarukyan is probably next in line, or should be. Oliveira just beat him. So I think at this point, he has to fight down. So really what we need to do is look at these people that are ranked 5 and up and see who is trying to break into the top 5 rankings. Well, I guess number 5 would already be in the top 5, but breaking the top 4 rankings, I suppose.
Well,
so,
Benoit St. Denis is number 5.
Right.
And I personally like that matchup for Max. They haven't fought yet. you're not going to jump Benoit more than 2 spots. Let's be real here. And
Especially,
Charles
I
has to
could
fight someone who's going to be a BMF next, and I've got someone in mind for that.
I could see you jumping Benoit Saint Denis or some of these fighters up 2 points or up 2 spots, depending on where they're ranked. But in this, but not for Benoit Saint Denis, not because of anything against him, but the fact that he's ranked number 5 and the people ranked at 3, 2, and 1 are knocking on the door for a title shot. So you shouldn't have those guys fight down, is what I'm getting at. So if you're asking who's next for Max Holloway, I think Benoit Saint Denis and Paddy Pimblett are probably really good contenders. They have not fought yet. Max hasn't fought either one of those guys, so I think either one of those would be really good. And I don't think you need to have him fight down as far as 7 or below. So I don't think Gamrod Hooker, I don't think any of those guys.
Against Charles Oliveira, you don't deserve to have to fight out of the top, 7 or so.
Right. So I really do think
be ashamed of.
Yeah, I think Benoit Saint Denis or Paddy Pimblett, like one of those two should be his next opponent, in my opinion.
Either one of those. Max would hurt Paddy.
I think he'd hurt either one of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I don't want to see Paddy hurt.
It's going to happen, man.
We don't talk smack on the Ground and Pound cast. We just say reality, and Max would hurt Paddy.
Max would hurt both these guys. If you're talking about a fun stylistic matchup, to be honest with you, I would like to see Max versus Benoit Saint Denis. I think it makes for a more exciting fight. Both of them, Benoit Saint Denis and Paddy Pimblett, that is, both of them have pretty good grappling. But Benoit seems to have a more aggressive striking style when he is standing, and I think that style paired up against Max Holloway would lead for a more fun fight. Just my opinion. It would still be fun with Paddy, to clarify. I think either way, either those two opponents, if they put them against Max, either one of those, I'd be happy to see it. Either one.
Yeah. And what do we do with Charles?
So this is a really weird spot. Okay, I think it's kind of weird. Even when Max fought Ilya earlier, when he was BMF champ, I thought it was kind of weird to have the BMF champ fighting the undisputed champ for that weight class.
I feel like if you're holding the BMF belt, you're not really supposed to go for undisputed.
Right.
Because you've already got a belt. Or to go for undisputed, you've got to be stripped and a new BMF fight be made. Right,
but to do that now would be almost unfair in the eyes of a lot of people because it's already happened with Max, even though he lost the match. So It's kind of a weird thing. There's a lot of contention right now with just the very existence of the BMF title, which we'll talk about in a minute.
And then you have the question of going for a fight without putting your belt on the line.
Yeah. It is kind of weird. I think if you just pretend for a minute the BMF title didn't exist, let's just remove it from the equation, and let's just say that this is just another lightweight fighter going for the title. He's already lost to Arman Tsarukyan. He probably shouldn't fight Justin just yet because he's the interim champion, and the interim should be going against the undisputed champion next. I think maybe even with or without the BMF title, probably put him against Arman Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan's kind of being held down from going after the main. I don't know. Even then, like, what if Arman wins that fight? Now he's the BMF champion. Does that stifle his chance of getting the undisputed title? It's kind of a mess.
It's an excuse not to give him a shot at it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. And
Arman is a BMF. We can't deny that. Arman's a bad dude. He's just a jerk.
I mean, that notwithstanding, I will admit that the existence of the BMF title, especially whenever you have some people involved that could be in title contention, makes things a little bit messy. I know there's a lot of people right now are complaining about the very existence of the BMF. Some people are saying that it needs to be just done away with altogether. I'm not quite sure.
I've seen have been saying that it needs to be done at a higher weight class.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel on that because on one hand, it's just like a fun thing. It doesn't usually hurt anything, but I can see at other times that it does make things murky when it comes to undisputed title contention. So I kind of have iffy thoughts on it. There's a lot of complaints right now revolving the BMF title. Another one of the big complaints is that why are you going to have someone who is a grappler going after the title? So one of the big complaints, and this is a complaint we've seen forever in UFC, where grapplers are just not loved as much as strikers. It's just more fun to watch a stand-up match. So why do you have these people doing all this wrestling and leg hugging and all this kind of stuff, stand and bang, and then people like us who appreciate grappling say, well, just go watch boxing, just go watch kickboxing. And those people are like, won't you just go watch wrestling? Well, look, the difference is people like us who appreciate grappling also appreciate striking. It's fine to like both, but the people that hate grappling only want to see striking. And those people have been very loud ever since last night because Charles Oliveira won this match by straight up out grappling Max Holloway. What do you think about those complaints? Do you think that's valid? Do you think because it's a BMF title that needs to be shown that you are the BMF, you're the baddest dude, you just stand and bang and that's it, and there shouldn't be any grappling? Some people are talking about there should be some rule changes. If it's a BMF title, there shouldn't be any grappling, or if you do grappling, it's a limited like 30 seconds. I've seen a lot of this kind of talk. What do you think about the whole grappling and BMF narrative that's going around right now?
The most BMF, the baddest Martha Fishers that have ever existed fought at UFC 1. Ken Shamrock, Royce Gracie, Tank Abbott. What we need is to go back and take some inspiration from UFC 1 and the rules before there were rules. You want to see how bad these guys are? Let's go ahead and stop saying no to kneeing a grounded opponent. Let's say yes to soccer kicks. Let's say yes to ripping an arm off and beating them with it. Take the restraints off and let them be the BMFs. No biting, no eye gouging. Don't stick a finger in the bum and don't hit in the nuts. After that, do whatever you've got to do to win.
So, in UFC 1, you could hit in the nuts because it happened.
Yeah, I said taking inspiration from UFC 1.
So basically what you want...
In UFC 1, they could also oil check, and I don't want that either.
So basically what you want is pride rules.
Yes.
You want pride rules for BMF.
Come into the BMF with pride rules and let it go.
Yeah,
let people challenge for the BMF under those rules. You will get and put a BMF in every weight class. Let that be the counter belt. You choose one or the other that you're going to chase.
Yeah. Now, while I don't hate your idea, I think that the problem with doing that is more from I guess you could say a legal standpoint, because they fall under an athletic commission and the athletic commission sets the rules. So, yeah. I get where you're coming from, and I'm not going to argue against it, but I'm just giving that little counterpoint that if
there may be a hiccup, that's what lawyers are for.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I vehemently disagree with all the people that just hate on grappling for grappling's sake, whether it's in or not in the BMF title fight. I can't stand that.
Nobody's going to argue that GSP or Royce Gracie didn't fit the title of BMF. And they were grapplers primarily. You got to have some grappling. Otherwise, you're just watching kickboxing, Muay Thai, or boxing.
Right. And to clarify, we're not... So I saw this earlier today whenever I was looking at Facebook and Twitter and everything. People talk about the BMF title. And, of course, you have the people hating on the grappling, and then the grappling defenders go on, and they're like, well, just go watch boxing or just go watch kickboxing. Then I saw one person respond, well, why don't you just go watch wrestling? And I just have to say that's a very weak comeback, because the people like us who do appreciate the grappling aren't hating on the striking. We have nothing against the striking. We are MMA fans, mixed martial arts. We're okay with the striking. We're okay with the grappling. Now, if there is something they're not doing right within the grappling or within the striking, maybe not doing things in the most smart way.
If you're not moving and progressing, then that's another story. But what we saw last night was two guys constantly trying, one guy constantly trying to finish the fight, and the other guy desperately at a high level preventing that.
Yeah, like he was slapping on rear naked chokes and neck cranks. And whenever he realized that, hey, this dude ain't tapping, he got his head slipped out, he starts raining down hellacious elbows. He was really doing a lot of work. So yeah, I can't stand this narrative. We'll talk about another.
Here's a BMF. Did you expect him to quit from elbows? Did you expect him to get submitted?
Exactly.
That is a bad dude.
Yes. See, there's another fight on this card we're going to talk about where there's grappling, and I'm going to criticize his grappling because of his how boring it was. But it's not because it was grappling. It's because of how it's implemented. It's very different. and we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I wanted to
those
address that.
subtleties don't mean anything to the MMA community.
Yeah, you're not lying there. So
All right, Caio Baralho versus RDR. Caio came in like a hurricane in round one, and then he looked like he was out of breath for round two, and then he recovered to be just good enough to take it in round three.
yeah, so this is one of the fights, just like the last one, that I got my predictions wrong on. Now, to be fair, I was close to 50-50 on it, and I did say I hope I'm wrong because I really do like Caio. So I have nothing against him winning. It was a legitimate win. The only complaint I have, really, when it comes to the outcome here was the judges' scorecards were 30-27. Now, I've done this multiple times before where even if I agree that the right person won, so it's not a robbery, if the scores are still really bad, I'm going to call it out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Roy, can you explain to me, like I'm five, how in the hell did Caio win round two?
Well, he was using defensive offense. He was strategically using his body to injure RDR's hands, feet, knees, and elbows.
Kind of like last week whenever someone used their face to beat up the other person's fists.
Exactly. And you just don't understand how judges weigh that kind of dedication to the art. You only think about the 8 limbs that are used for offense traditionally. The defensive body is also damaging to the fist and feet.
So Caio used his offensive face all over RDR's feet and hands.
Yes, and elbows.
Right. All right, look, all joking aside, whenever they showed the graphic for, this was towards the end of the third round, they showed the graphic for strikes landed, and RDR heavily outstruck him by a good bit in round two. And I remember watching round two, not only did RDR outstruck him, but he outgrappled him.
He took over control time, too.
Yeah, he had control time. He outgrappled him. He got several takedowns. He got a bunch of ground and pound.
He didn't just get control time, bro. He took over control time and strikes for the fight in round two over round one.
Like everything, by every single metric that you would score a round by. So that's strikes landed, significant strikes landed, octagon control, pressure, damage, takedowns, every single metric, RDR should have won round two. So
RDR should have won round one too, to be honest, because he had, I think, 22 significant strikes to Baralho's 10. But like I said in our group chat, Baralho hit more times that were insignificant, and that seemed to have swayed the judges.
See, I heard those numbers whenever they announced it, and those numbers didn't make sense to me because the way I saw it, Caio was outstriking him. So I think
they weren't counting Caio's as significant strikes, though. RDR's did damage. It even cut Caio.
Caio also did damage to RDR in that round as well. I think it was a fairly close round, but I had Caio winning it. But I don't know. I think that it was very clear that RDR won the second round, and I had Caio winning rounds 1 and 2. So when I heard 30-27, it's not like I could call this a robbery because the right guy won, but I just don't understand whenever you have a guy by every single metric you score a round by wins, like he has the advantage in every single category and still lose the round. I just don't understand these judges. I don't have the judges' scorecards pulled in front of me where I could call out the names of these guys. It would be all three of them.
The judges are the type of fans that I am, because now that I've seen that RDR has that kind of quit in him, and to stop on the stool, that takes a certain type of person. I don't think that he has what it takes to make it in mixed martial arts. He gradually diminished throughout the fight after round two.
Yeah. And that's actually something to bring up. With Caio getting this win, he is looking at moving forward. He's probably going to be getting a top 5 or top 6 guy. Let me pull up the rankings. As usual, these rankings aren't updated when we record. So at the time of this recording, he is ranked number 7. So this is number 7 and number 8 facing each other. And so he beat number 8. So next you need to put him against the top 6. So you have...
This is an easy one.
Go ahead.
Brendan Allen, man. Brendan Allen beat RDR. Those two, Caio and him, haven't fought.
I think they have fought.
No, they haven't.
right. I will double check that, but continue your point.
I'm looking at it right now. They have
Okay.
it.
All right. Fair enough. I thought they
But
had for some reason, but yeah, it looks like I'm mistaken. Continue. That is a good fight.
That's a great fight. That's a matchup. They both have a common opponent that they beat the tar out of. Let's let them have it.
Yeah. So a point I want to bring up is whenever I looked at Kaio's previous fight that he lost, and then you look at this fight where he kind of gassed in round 2 and he kind of had to recover a bit, I just worry. I think he is good, but I just worry.
He's going to run into a wall at the top 5.
Right. Like I could see him probably beating 6 and 5 because you have Izzy, prime Izzy, he would lose to, but current Izzy, he could probably beat. Izzy, I think, is on the way out. I think it would be a competitive, fun match with Hernandez that he might be able to win, maybe not. I'm not sure. I think that was kind of a coin flip.
You that Izzy's recreating himself as a grappler.
We talked about that on a recent episode, yeah, but that's not gonna. He's not gonna be able to out grapple Kaio that quickly. But then when you start looking at names above that, Brendan Allen, I think is a competitive fight. But it's going to start getting really, really hard from there on up. I mean, yeah, I do not see him.
Of DDP and Hamza, there's levels to this game, as they say.
He's already lost Imavov. The fight that he lost recently, because remember, this is his comebacks. He's coming off a loss. His loss was to Imavov. I could see him being competitive with Izzy, Hernandez, and Allen. I do not see him beating Sean Strickland. I don't see him beating Imavov in a rematch. He definitely can't touch Chimaev. And in the post-fight interview, he called out Dricus du Plessis. He wants to fight him. We all know what he's doing. He's trying to call out probably the biggest name he could probably get a fight with. So if he wins that one, he moves up to a title shot. But I just see DDP run through him.
Yet.
I like Kaio. I really like Kaio.
In the lab, doing his nerd thing and get his cardio under control.
Right. And I really do like Kaio, and I would love to see him go on a tear, beat some of these top 3 guys, win the title. I'd be so happy for him, but I just don't see it happening. Especially, I think top 5, he starts to struggle. Top 3, he hits a hard wall at that point, if he makes it to that point.
For now, he's still a young guy. There's a lot of room for improvement.
How old is he?
And he's doing it right. He's in the lab. He's doing his fighting nerd thing.
He's 33.
Looking at fight tape, increasing his chances of winning by focusing on his fight IQ. That's solid. He can go a long way with that. John Jones basically did the same thing. While he was hella athletic, his fight IQ is what set him apart from everyone else and why he's managed to keep undefeated. He knew when that Cyril Gane had the tendency to open up his back when he swung, and he knew to take advantage of that going into the fight. So fight IQ will bring you a long way. He needs to work on his physical presence and his cardio to get there, though.
Yeah, I do think he has good striking.
And his knockout power.
I think he has
definitely needs it.
Right. He has good striking and good grappling, but doesn't have great striking or great grappling. I think that there is some that could be polished up. He's very well rounded, though. So there still is a lot of potential with this guy, but he does need to tighten up a few things. Now, going back to RDR, it's kind of funny. When these fights happen, I like to get online and see what people are saying because it kind of gives us things to talk about because that's the best way that I can see the narrative from the fan base anyway, because that's a lot about what we talk about here. And I saw a comment on RDR after this fight that he lost against Kaio that kind of made me laugh. Someone said that Rene de Ritter has about as much knockout power as Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, I can see that.
I was like,
that would be a really good fight. I think McKenzie could take him.
I kind of laughed at that, but then I remembered when I was watching the fight, and it's kind of backwards to me because RDR is Dutch and Kaio is Brazilian, but Kaio was the superior striker and RDR was the superior grappler, and it's like, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you figure Brazilians would be the masters of that, and Dutch people are known for kickboxing. You have Dutch kickboxers, tons of Dutch kickboxers throughout MMA history.
Racism.
It's not racism.
It is. You're assuming that they have certain traits because of their race.
I didn't say anything about any race. I was talking about nationalities.
Sorry, it's nationalism.
So I'm looking at RDR. He's Dutch. He's from the Netherlands, and Netherlands are known for having a strong kickboxing, Scene.
Stereotype. That's what I was looking for. You're stereotyping.
Stop being such a social justice warrior. Let me get my point out, damn it. So this dude is from the Netherlands. The Netherlands are known for having some of the best kickboxers, yet he is not a striker primarily. He is a grappler. Then Brazilian from Brazil, where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blew up, he's more of a striker. So I just thought that was kind of funny, little backwards there. Side note, as I'm looking at RDR's stats here, I notice he has the same birthday that I do. He's younger, but we both have September 7th birthdays. Just want to throw that out there. Doesn't really mean anything, but hey. I just want to throw that out there. I thought that was kind of funny that the Brazilian was the superior striker and the Dutchman was the superior grappler. But what is next for RDR? So obviously he has to fight down. He just lost to someone who's ranked one above him. Whitaker, Cannonier, Delize, Costa. I think Costa's moving up. I think to light heavyweight. Cannonier. That should be fun.
Cannonier would be a good fight.
Whitaker, I mean.
I always like to see a matchup for Paulo Costa.
Or
the lead up to that is always a good time. Or we have RoboCop, who just came off. To say that is coming off a win.
Because when I said or, I was
jump for him.
When I said or, I was about to say or RoboCop, who we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, RDR. Back to this Mackenzie Dern comment. I was like, kind of. I kind of have to agree that he doesn't have a lot of power as a striker because he was kind of like lazily throwing. He has a very long jab because he's so tall. What is his height here? Let me look it up. He is 6'4", and he's long even for someone who's 6'4". He has a very long jab, but he has like no snap to it. He just kind of paws it out there. But anyway, back to potential future fights. Yeah, any of those guys that we just listed, I think would be pretty good fights for him.
After looking at it, I really feel strongly that RoboCop would be the right fight. We're going to skip a couple and go to RoboCop real quick because he looked impressive, and he did it in only a minute 47.
We're gonna skip the Raul fight. You don't want to hear me ranting on that just yet. I got stuff to say on that.
Okay, it makes logical sense to talk about RoboCop in series because he was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about two middleweight fights back to back. So Caio versus RDR, and now we're talking about Bruno Ferreira against Gregory Rodriguez. I want to make a little correction on myself. Last week, when I looked at Bruno's record, I said that he was a bit of a can crusher. He has a good record overall, but he fights mostly a bunch of nobodies. And we kind of had a little bit of back and forth about him being a can crusher or not. I somehow completely overlooked when I was looking at his record that one of the wins he has against those nobodies that I mentioned that makes him a can crusher was RoboCop. He beat RoboCop a few years ago in the UFC by second round knockout.
Well, without looking at it, how many punches do you think it took for RoboCop to win this one?
It wasn't many. It was like the first flush landed hit that I remember.
Take a guess.
3? I don't know.
2.
Jeez.
He finished this fight in 2 hits.
It did take a minute 47. It was almost like he was trying to find that range, which is not uncommon. We sometimes see that, Not every fight starts off just guns a-blazing, so the first few rounds is kind of like filling each other out and trying to find the range. And then it's like, as soon as Rodriguez found the range, it was a straight cross. It was a right cross that hit right on the button.
And Ferreira crumbled. Rodriguez didn't even follow it up. It was over.
Right. We've seen before a recent fight where RoboCop like knocked the dude out and he just instinctively jumped on him and threw one more punch on him that looked kind of brutal and almost felt borderline unnecessary. This one, you can see he was so out, like he rushed up to him and he just puts his hands up like, yep, done. Kind of a walk-off KO.
I don't even think he went unconscious. I think he just didn't want to get hit again and out of reflex curled up.
I don't blame you. I don't blame him for that because, that was a solid punch. Like, I remember watching it sitting on my couch and I squirmed. I was like, oh, I just kind of squirmed. I was like, oh my God, that was... And
it was stiff.
I was talking to my wife about that. I said, Rodriguez is a guy, I've watched a lot of his fights. There's been a few fights he's lost by knockout, but he wins a lot by knockout as well. It's like he fights so aggressively that a lot of his fights either end with him getting knocked out or the other person getting knocked out. Usually the other person getting knocked out. And I'm not kidding you. As soon as I said usually the other person getting knocked out, Bruno gets knocked out. like about a half a second after I said it. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, see?
See, and for these guys moving forward, we kind of already covered what we want for Rodriguez, and it looks like both of us are in agreement, already are.
I think that would be a really good fight. I really do.
And then Ferreira is ranked 15. He just kind of falls off into obscurity with this loss.
Yeah, I suppose so.
All right, the time you've been waiting for, my friend. Are you prepared to rant?
All right, so I have, ever since this podcast started, actually before this podcast is an idea, I've been a big defender of grappling in MMA. It's gotten to where we have a fan base that's very driven on the adrenaline and the high octane. And I will admit, even as a grappling fan, I will admit that standing and striking, just there's more adrenaline behind it. It's more exciting. How many martial arts movies can you think of where it's about grappling? There are some, but it's very small. How many are about striking? Kung fu, karate. There's millions probably. I get it. It's okay if you like striking more, but it should also be accepted that grappling is something that's valid, and I will continue to defend grappling if it's very good grappling. Going back to the Charles Oliveira match, that was the kind of grappling that I like. Even if he didn't get the finish, the fact that he's hunting for submissions, and when he wasn't getting the submissions, he's turning it into strikes, he's advancing position, he stays working. That's what grappling is all about in MMA. That's what it should be. Raul Rosas Jr. fought Rob Font in a match that I called last week to be the lock of the night. And I was right, it was the lock of the night. But it was not what I was expecting to see because, Rosas actually is pretty well-rounded. We've seen good striking from him. We've seen good grappling from him. Last night, he decided that he was going to utilize his grappling, and I'm okay with that. The problem that I have whenever I've spent so much time online against all these casuals out there trying to defend grappling, it's really hard to do that when people like Raul Rosas Jr. give us the type of matches that we had last night, because all he did was take Rob Font down and did nothing but control him. It was kind of like when you complained about Almeida. Really good takedown game, really good top control game. You take him down, you control him, and then do what? Nothing. And that's why Almeida lost against Volkov, because Volkov from the bottom, even though he's getting out grappled like crazy, he was at least frantically punching from bottom, which was better than nothing. But in this case,
Rob Font did nothing.
Right. So it was, you can see he's trying. Rob Font was trying to get up. He was just not finding the right angles to do it. He was kind of stuck and not in a good position where he could swing up at him like Volkov was against Almeida. So basically, we talk about wet blankets, and I've saw people calling Charles Oliveira a wet blanket. That's not a wet blanket performance.
Rosas was a wet blanket last night.
That was a wet blanket performance. He just laid on him. He wasn't hunting for submissions. He wasn't trying to improve his position. He got into a position where he's able to hold him, but not set up anything from there. When I say set up something, I'm talking ground and pound or submissions. He wasn't quite in a position where he could do that. So when you're in that position, you need to advance your position or change your angle so you can do that. He did nothing. Maybe a little bit. You see him squirm a little bit, maybe throw a couple punches here and there, but not a lot of anything. And yes, he did deserve to win all three of these rounds. It was the proper scores to give him, because unlike the Almeida Volkov fight, Rob Font wasn't really doing anything in return to give him those rounds. So being the wet blanket was enough to score you the rounds, but it was one of the most disappointing displays of grappling in an MMA match that I've seen in a very long time, not counting Almeida fights. It was very frustrating as someone who has ardently defended grappling in MMA for so long to see a match like this and say, yes, we still need more of this. It's so frustrating. Like, I like Raul Rosas Jr. I think he's a young man, very young, and shows a lot of potential. He's very well-rounded. He's very skilled. He's very athletic. And I think he has a very bright future, but you need to start doing more than what you're doing, or you're not going to get very far. You're in the bantamweight division, one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC currently. If you try to bring that energy against these people that are higher ranked, they're going to completely maul you. You can't just lay on these people.
The only person in the top 10 who that might work on is Sean O'Malley, because he doesn't do wrestling.
I don't even think that would work. I think if he got him in the positions,
I'm
he
joking.
could.
You know that Sean O'Malley's competing in RAF in a couple weeks, right?
I did not know that, but even so, like the joking aside, but really just breaking it down, I don't think that he would be able to take Sean O'Malley down, not because of
No.
O'Malley's anti-grappling, but because of O'Malley's range with his jab and his staying on the outside and striking. I think it would be very similar to the match when O'Malley fought Aljamain Sterling, where you try to shoot in for a takedown, and then he's just going to tag you on the way in. I think in a fight like that, Rosas would probably try to stand and bang with him, and I think O'Malley would just take his head off. I look at like this top 10. So is he? So he's not ranked at all. Rosas, that is not ranked at all.
This fight will put him ranked. Rob Font was 13th, so Rosas will break into the top 15 with this.
Okay, yeah. I'm looking at right here. You're right. So, he will bring it to the top 15. I guess he'll move up to 13ish probably. Vinicius Oliveira, Peyton Talbot. Yeah, so let's start at number 11. Peyton Talbot, Vera. I'm not so much sure about Martinez. I don't see him using that against these two. Maybe Vera, even though Peyton Talbot's ranked a little bit lower.
The thing with a young guy like Rosas is every time he fights, he's got to get better. And you have to challenge him to get better. Otherwise, he's never going to make it to a championship before he hits 23 and breaks John Jones's record.
Yeah.
So I think that Vinicius Oliveira is a good next challenge. Vinicius is coming off of a loss, and he's not going to let Rosas a wet blanket him at all.
Yeah. So let's see here. I'm looking more at the rankings. Yeah, that could be a good fight for him. I really think like I said last week, when you get like to 8 and above in bantamweight, it's just murderers after murderers.
Yeah.
Start him against one of these other guys that is maybe outside the top 10 and see what he could do from there, because what we saw, yes, he won, but I'm not impressed with that
not
win.
Enough to keep climbing the rankings without evolving.
Right. You're going to have to evolve, or you're going to get stagnant, and at best, you'll end up being a gatekeeper. Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
Cliche.
Sorry.
You can't say that anymore.
Hey, I got a challenge. I got a challenge for our listeners. Go back to our last episode that aired last week, where we did a preview of this card and also a recap of the previous card, and listen to it and take a shot every time you hear one of us say the word gatekeeper.
Oh, that's called alcohol poisoning, dude. Take a shot of water and you might survive.
Yeah. You'd be very hydrated, though. Very hydrated.
Speaking of hydrated, did you see that the line moved right before the Michael Johnson-Drew Dober fight?
Yeah, so I did not know this until literally just a few hours ago when you mentioned it to me, and I think Rick had some comments on it as well. So before we get into that, let's just briefly talk about the Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson fight. This is a fight that I was saying I was kind of iffy on. I'm leaning towards Johnson because he's on a bit of a win streak. Drew Dober's been very hit or miss lately, and so I picked Johnson. I was wrong. Dober won by a very impressive knockout. This was right after the RoboCop knockout, so we got two very solid knockouts back-to-back, and they're both from the cross. In this case, it's a left cross because they're both southpaws. Very impressive performance by Drew Dober. I was really happy to see him kind of get some of his, what's the word I'm looking for? Like some of his game back, so to speak, because he's kind of been out of it lately. He's been a little more inconsistent, and I thought this was a very good performance. All that being said, I saw something about the betting for this fight got pulled, and apparently this is not the first time this happened in a Michael Johnson fight. Do you have more details on this? Because this is still kind of new news to me.
The first time that it happened with Michael Johnson, they canceled the fight, and I'm looking to see who that fight was against real quick. That was against Alexander Hernandez, who got cut. But now against Drew Dober, the line moved in the last day before the fight heavily in Dober's favor. And lo and behold, Johnson went out there and lost. But I didn't think that it looked like he threw it at all. Johnson landed some solid strikes. He was trying to end the fight.
I didn't realize that Alexander Hernandez was cut from the UFC. Little side topic, little side tangent regarding that fighter. One of the most satisfying moments of a person getting put in their place, getting some humble pie, was from Alexander Hernandez whenever he was talking all this trash about Cowboy Cerrone, Donald Cerrone, talking about how he's going to take this old man out to pasture and he's a bum, and he was just talking the most mad trash ever, and Cerrone just completely dominated him and finish him off by TKO in the second round. Anyway, just a little side tangent I want to throw out there. But yeah, I was unaware that there was some fishy stuff going on between him and Hernandez. And then now this one. What's going on here with Michael Johnson? Is he a diver? Someone who takes dives? Do you think that's what's going on?
I don't know, but
it's fishy. 2 in a row.
Yeah, it's weird that this happens twice in a row with a guy. And I think the UFC will take action on this because they're not going to have somebody out there compromising the integrity of the sport, or even looking to compromise the integrity of the betting world.
Yeah. Side note, this was Michael Johnson's 20th loss.
Yay!
Only 24 wins.
25.
24.
It says 25 on Google. Darn it, Google, you
I mean,
are
I'm on Wikipedia, and it's not always accurate, but it says 24 and 20. 44 total. 24 wins, 20 losses. Yeah. Not that any of it matters. He got another loss against
Now,
Redover.
speaking of what matters is a one fight from the undercard. One particular fight, because that's all I wanted to see, was Cody Garbrandt versus Long Zhao.
Hold on. Before you get into that, I have a question for you still on this fight before we jump to the prelims. So Michael Johnson, at this point, I wouldn't be mad if you cut him with a record like that. Drew Dober was on a losing streak. Now he's on a 2-fight win streak. What do you think's next for Drew Dober? He's unranked.
Yeah, I mean, with a knockout like that, you got to start looking at the top 15. Let's see who's lightweight top 15.
Lightweight's probably the most stacked division.
Yeah.
So, I'd say start with the very bottom. Very, very, very bottom.
I mean, you could always throw Michael Chandler at him. Of course, isn't Chandler fighting at the White House?
Yes, we'll talk about that. I have that in my notes. We are going to talk about that. So, yeah, enough on that. Let's go ahead and talk about this prelim fight. So this is actually when I tuned in. I didn't get to tune in immediately because I was out doing stuff with the family. And then when I finally turned it on, I turn on my TV, I go to Paramount, and I see Cody Garbrandt doubled over and gagging, and then Herb Dean takes a point, and I hear the commentary team say that's the second point taken away. And I was like, wait, what? What did I miss? Roy, you saw the entire fight. Just tell me what happened. Tell me like I didn't see any of it. Just from the beginning, break down this fight in every detail.
Round 1 and 2 were very simple. Long Zhao, high kick to the head, over and kicking and anti-grappling and kicking. They both landed solid high kicks, but Zhao was just a little bit more. Go into the third round with Zhao up by 2 rounds, clearly up by 2 rounds. And he kicks Cody Garbrandt in the inner thigh. And the way he does it, I swear a toe slipped past the cup and clipped an actual testicle. Ugh. Garbrandt doubles over. He goes down, starts dry heaving, eventually grabs a bucket and vomits in the bucket. The fight should have been called there according to the rules. The rules say if a fighter loses control of their bodily fluids, they lose the fight right there. I'm sure they wouldn't have given it to Zhao for a foul.
It'd been no contest,
should have been
probably
the end of the fight.
Yeah.
Instead, Cody comes back and he doesn't even take the full 5 minutes. After vomiting, he stands up, he goes, let's do it. And he comes out like a wild animal, throwing everything he's got. He was pissed. And by the way, for the first testicle shot, Zhao lost a point. Garbrandt comes out violent, angry, and Zhao knees him square in the sack a second time and puts him down. Second point lost. Garbrandt comes back and finishes the round by keeping distance. His little outburst whenever he was angry from the first one was enough to win him the round. And the score should have been 29-28 on all three scorecards, but because Zhao had 2 points lost, it went to 28-27 Garbrandt.
Man, I'm kind of glad that I'm hearing that we're being a little more adamant about taking action for fouls and actually taking away points. But I got
something happened earlier in the night I read where Herb Dean didn't cover a foul to a testicle shot and allowed 6 extra punches while the guy was doubled over. So I think Herb Dean got in trouble, and this time he jumped on the first not mutual foul.
Wow.
There was a mutual foul, a double headbutt in the second round that didn't stop the action. I forgot about that.
Yeah, mutual fouls are kind of weird. If it's something where it is mutual like that and it's not stopping the fight, you just separate it. Tell both guys, hey, that's where I could really see warnings, just going out and then letting it be at that. It's kind of a weird thing when it comes to these fouls. Do we need to take away point every single time or not? Sometimes you need to look at the situation. How much is it going to change the game? Just a little brush.
If it's a foul is a foul, intentional or not, it's a foul. It needs to be enforced.
So you think
These
single
guys
foul
should be training to avoid fouls.
So every single foul should be a point deducted.
Yes.
Now I got a little question for you. It's a rhetorical question and a bit of a complaint. Why is it the refs are so much more adamant about penalizing for fence grabs than physical fouls like eye gouges and groin shots? You see how quick they'll get your hands off the cage, let go of the cage. That's a point. I've seen it immediately, like first time. I don't think ever until this past weekend or last night.
Because grabbing the cage isn't a measure of toughness.
But what I'm getting at, though, is like I don't think I've ever until last night saw a fighter get a point taken away from the first foul. But I have seen points taken away from the first fence grab.
Because the being able to absorb an eye gouge or a nut shot is a measure of toughness. You can keep going with the fight. You don't want your fighter to look like a wuss for winning by points, point deduction. But for a fence grab, that's not a measure of toughness. That's just a blatant rule violation.
Yeah.
We have this thing of intentional versus unintentional in this sport that makes no sense. It's easier to say he was grabbing the fence to try and get better position than it is to say he kicked him in the nuts because he needed a breather.
Yeah. I remember a big fight changing the course of win or loss was from a fence grab that stopped Rashad Evans' undefeated streak. He was going against Tito Ortiz, and there's a fence grab that resulted in a point deduction, and it turned the fight into a draw. Fun side note. And it was the first fence grab. And I think the reason why, because we actually do see a lot of fence grabs where it is like, hey, get your fingers out of the fence. I think it depends on like what the outcome is. Like if you're just in a position where you're up against the fence and you reach in and curl your fingers into the cage, the ref will fuss at you. But if there's something where you're going to get taken down or something like that and the fence grab stops it, they seem to take a point away very quickly for that, which is what happened in that Tito Ortiz and Rashad Evans fight. I can't remember which one was taking which one down, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Tito taking Rashad down, and Rashad, it might be backwards, I have to look it up, grabbed the fence and it stopped the takedown from happening. And I think it was Herb Dean, if I'm not mistaken. He's like, it's a point. He didn't even stop the action because eventually, like, he ended up letting go and then they kind of reset the action, but he just immediately deducted a point and it resulted in a draw. A little side tangent on fence grabs and point deductions.
Supposed to be a great referee, but I think that we need to get into the era now that Big John is back, where he handles all championship fights.
Herb Dean is a ref that has been around a very long time and has reffed a ton of fights, more than probably most refs that we see in the UFC the last probably couple of decades. And I know that he does get a lot of grief. I've heard a lot of people complain about his reffing. I think, unfortunately, the problem is he is in so many matches that it's just more likely to see him make a mistake because he is in so many matches. If you take like a percentage of how many fights he's in and doing a good job versus a bad job, he's probably pretty average or maybe sort of good for a ref. It's just when you're in that many, you know,
You're going to have some bad calls.
right. So it's kind of like
Speaking of bad calls, did you hear what they set up for the White House?
Yes, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I want to
Worst part of the year.
right. I want to give an example of like being in more matches and seeing more mistakes and how it kind of changes the public opinion. I'm a big baseball fan, and there is an infamous referee or umpire actually by the name of Angel Hernandez, who is known for just being the worst umpire ever. It's like it's an ongoing joke for many years now. He's the worst umpire ever. And a friend of mine that's also really into baseball actually pulled up his stats because they actually rate umpires based off of like how good their strike zone calls are and all that. And it turns out that Angel Hernandez is actually just slightly better than average. But the reason why he's seen so poorly is because he umps so much and he's in so many high profile matches that whenever he makes a mistake, it's just seen a lot more. So I think that's the case with Herb Dean here, is that he's just in so much that he takes a lot more grief because he's in the public eye a lot more when mistakes happen. Anyway, that rant out of the way. You ready to talk about this White House card?
Yep, worst card of the year. It's going to be boring. I may actually skip it.
Yep, that's actually what everybody's saying. It's just the total worst. You know, actually, this is another rant I want to go on. I don't want to get too ranty today. I think I've been ranty enough. When I look at this card, let's ignore that it's the White House. Let's ignore that it's this big landmark. It's going to be the 250th birthday of the United States and all this stuff, even though it's not technically, it's a month behind. But regardless, if you were to just take this as any other numbered event, it's a pretty good card. The problem is
it's not a bad card. I expected something incredible for the White House, though.
And that's the point. That is the point right there that I'm trying to make. The thing is, it's gotten so overhyped because the same thing happened for UFC 300. It got so overhyped. Dana White and other people in the UFC are like, this is going to be the big one. This is going to be the big one. It's going to be so big. It's going to blow your mind. We're going to put a card together that's just going to just surpass all expectations. It's going to be the most mind-blowing event in human history, and you just don't want to miss it. He overhypes it so much. But the thing is,
you know that I'm a sales guy. I've always been a sales guy. And there's a saying, under promise and over deliver. When you go out there and you hype something up this big, there's no way that you're going to deliver on that promise.
Right. Because the thing is, like, no matter how well the pieces are falling into place, at the end of the day, you're still working with the fighters you have. You're still working with the champions you have. And there's just only so many possible combinations and matches that you can make. And sure, you can put together a pretty fun card, but to act like it's going to be this mind-blowing thing, it's literally impossible to meet the expectations when Dana White overhypes it this much. So the card we got, I will admit a few of these are kind of weak, and I think these could go on another one. But I think the co-main, the main event that we're getting are pretty solid. The rest of the card is not bad. It's just it's so overhyped that people are saying this is the worst card ever.
The rest of the card needed Americans in positions where we can win.
Then
and that's what they did. They gave us Americans mostly in positions where they can win.
Why did they put us against? Why did they have Chandler versus Hoofy?
Did you just refer to Chandler as us?
American.
Yeah. You're on Team Chandler.
No.
He can win that. It's just unlikely that he does. O'Malley versus a hobby. Kind of a lock for O'Malley. Nickel versus Dukog, kind of a toss-up. And then Lopez versus Garcia. I don't think either of them are American.
Garcia is.
Oh, okay.
He's Mexican-American, but he is.
But anyone who fights Lopez is going to have their hands full.
Yeah. So I don't know if we want to go into depth on this entire card. Because we'll talk about it more as we get closer to the card, and also like any card that's announced this far out, because this is in June and we're only in March, so that's 3 months away. There's probably going to be some changes. We're probably going to see some of these fighters have to pull out for some reason, and then someone else is going to have to step in. And this is obviously not going to be the entire card. So
Now, we did our predictions for what was going to be the White House card,
y'all
and
did.
I feel like I did pretty well. I predicted Gon versus Pereira because I didn't believe that Jones was going to fight. I predicted Ilya versus Gaethje, and I predicted Chandler and Nickel were going to be on it. So, how did you come out in your prediction?
I didn't do predictions on it because I just thought they were just
Oh yeah, you didn't want to waste energy on a
right.
feckless topic.
So basically, what it was, the reason why I didn't do predictions on it is because I only have one of two modes when it comes to stuff like this. I either overthink or underthink. And for something like this, where there's so many different possibilities, so many different angles, and so many different unknowns, that either I'm going to just say, I don't feel like putting the energy in it. I'm just going to throw out some names and then see what happens. And it would be so low effort, it didn't seem worth the effort. Or I'm going to spend hours and hours breaking down every little thing and then try to come up with what I think would be the perfect card. And the UFC wouldn't do that anyway. And I just didn't feel like burning the energy on it. The only thing that I figured was going to happen was there's going to be Pereira in a heavyweight fight of some sort. I didn't know who would be against. I thought Gon was one of the most likely names, if not the most likely name. But that's just like one fight that I had. I wasn't sure about Tapuri and Gaethje because I knew that they were going to fight. I just didn't know if it was going to be on this card or not.
I had heard a rumor that they weren't going to be on the card because there was too high of a chance of Ilya knocking out the American. But there's also a chance of the American taking the undisputed, and there's no other position, no other weight class where an American is really in that position, unless you want to put Sean Strickland on here and let him run his mouth for the 250th, which I did not think they would give him that platform.
Yeah, we don't really want that. And plus, they probably don't want to see him just get out grappled on the White House lawn against the Chechenian, which is technically Russian. So, yeah, we're going to, when this card gets closer, we'll go into more depth about it because I do predict that there's going to be some changes because how often do we see a card predicted 3 months out that doesn't have any changes whatsoever? We'll wait until we're a lot closer.
Cannot change is Pereira versus Gon. I have been calling for that fight forever.
Yeah, unless some crazy thing happens, like freak injury or something, I'm pretty sure that one's going to stay. But when we get closer, we'll go more in depth into breaking this down. Yeah, that's basically it on that. Now, there is one name that there's a lot of speculation might be on this card, and Rick was very sure he was going to be on this card, and he wasn't. And the person we're talking about also expected to be on the card, and he wasn't. And he completely lost his mind on social media about it.
John Jones.
John Jones. So I have...
And just for the record, I want to throw out there, Rick was so sure John Jones was going to be representing at the White House, he bet me a T-bone steak dinner, and I am going to get a T-bone steak because I told him John Jones and Connor are never fighting again.
Yeah, that is true. I was going to leave that out. I was going to leave y'all's personal bet out of it. Now, I want to add real quick. So Rick was very sure that John Jones is going to be on the White House card. Roy is saying that John Jones will never fight again, period. He's already had his last fight. He's done. I fall in the middle. I was more on Roy's side because I did agree that he won't be on the White House card. The only difference I have, and I still stand by, is I do think he will fight again eventually. I don't know who he'll be against. I don't know when that will be. Maybe within the next year or something. We shall see.
Okay, let me be more specific. He'll never fight in the UFC again. I can see him taking a cash grab to go box Jake Paul.
Yeah, but I do think he might fight in the UFC again. Nope. I don't think it'll be soon. I think he is going to, because Dana White knows he can make money off of John Jones. He just didn't want to put John Jones, because he stated this, even though Dana White has walked back some of the things he said before in the past, a lot of things, but he did say he didn't trust John Jones enough to put him in a position for the White House card, because the White House card is such a big deal that they're making that they don't want anything to mess it up. And when they went through the whole drama with the Tom Aspinall thing, they don't want to go through that again, where it's like, is the fight happening? Is it not happening? We don't know, because he's so wishy-washy. We don't want that for the White House card. We want for sure things to happen, right? So he didn't trust John Jones to put him in that position. That's why I was very confident he wouldn't be in the White House. But Dana White does know he can still make money off John Jones. John Jones draws. So I think when this whole thing between Pereira and Gane and Tom Aspinall, when he returns, when all of the dust settles from that, I could see John Jones swooping in at the end of all of it to try to insert himself to get in that mix at some point. And if and when that happens, Dana White could look at that and go, yeah, we could make some money off of this. And I could see that happening.
Happen. For two big reasons. One, John's never fighting in the UFC again. But more importantly, it's not up to Dana White anymore. It's up to Hunter Campbell, and Hunter Campbell is not a John Jones stan.
So why is it no longer up to Dana White and only Hunter Campbell?
Dana White turned over matchmaking in the UFC to Hunter Campbell and went to focus on Zuffa boxing.
Interesting. I missed that news.
Yeah, Dana White's only doing matchmaking for the White House. Other than that, Zuffa boxing is his main focus now, and Hunter Campbell is doing matchmaking over the UFC.
Yep. So for those of you that missed it, when John Jones found out he was not on the White House card, apparently he was not told.
He lost his mind.
So there was a series of what looked like drunken rants on Twitter, also known as X, that were eventually deleted, but there were some screenshots of that went out there, and I don't have them pulled up in front of me to quote them. But after he deleted those, he went on another crash out and posted a whole bunch more, and I got a screenshot of that myself. So what I'm reading off to you is not rumor, speculation, or fake tweets, because you can make those very easily nowadays. These are ones that I screenshot myself. I have it here on my phone. I don't know if they're still up because I haven't looked, but this was a couple hours ago. That gas. I don't know what any of these mean. It sounds like it's drunken ranting, but he's very angry about this. One is that gas. The other one is I'm brother as F, but do not lie on me. Another one was angry, not lost. Another one is dumb S, easy day. And the next one is I can't even run. That's like his little series of angry tweets. And there was another series of angry tweets that had been since deleted. So he's not happy.
No. But he's telling the truth when he says he can't run. He's got an arthritic hip. He looked terrible at the flag football match trying to run. I'm having my hip replaced in literally 2 weeks. And I can tell you, when it's at this point, you're not doing much anything. And then after going through a hip replacement before that went wrong and one that went right, I can tell you that after a hip replacement, the restrictions are severe enough, you're not going to fight. If they go in through the front, you can't step out with your leg for almost a year. If they go in through the back, you can't cross your legs over each other for a year. And that's just to be able to make the motions. If you want to make those motions with actual stress on you, it's longer than a year, because you have to build up muscle and tendons enough that it'll hold that hip in place after they cut in to access it.
Sounds painful.
It's really not. It is surprisingly not one of the least painful of my 54 surgeries, but it's invasive and it's a major surgery.
All right, then. So he's done.
He's done. He's finished. Fried, boiled, steamed, sauteed.
We do like boiled in Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm ready for dinner. So,
all right. So next week we have another event, another fight night. We're going to be
every week.
Yeah,
it's insane that they're able to keep this up.
I'm not sure how many in a row. I looked for several events in a row, and it looks like every single weekend for the foreseeable future we have events, and it's kind of hard to keep up with all of them. And I'll be honest with you, it's going to be very hard for me to want to keep up with all of them because of just doing other things with like family life and stuff like that. So I'm not really sure I'm going to be too interested in this card. I might tune in for a couple of these fights. Like I'll watch replays of them later. But there's an event next week. It's a fight card that doesn't have a whole lot of notable names on it. It's headlined by Josh Emmett and Kevin Vallejos. If that's the headline, it doesn't seem too exciting. There's a UFC fight night the week after that I think is headlined by a much better fight. So the rest of this card is kind of blah. But who knows? It could still be fun fights. Like we've seen before where there's fighters I never heard of and they fight and it turns out to be a really exciting fight. It's hard to know if it is going to be that way. And sometimes I want to do other things on a Saturday night. Whenever you have 40-something events in the UFC over the course of a year and only 52 weeks in the year, I'm not going to want to spend every single Saturday night dedicated to UFC whenever I have a family. So this is probably going to be an event that I skip, and I might, if I see the reviews online think these were good fights, I might go back and watch the replays. But I just want to mention next week a couple of fights here. Josh Emmett versus Ken Vallejos could be a fun fight. When I look down the card, you have Vitor Petrino fighting. Now, I had mentioned him a handful of weeks ago. I saw him fight, and I said he had a lot of promise. So he is 13-2. He had a 2-fight. He was undefeated in the UFC, 11-0. Then he went on a 2-fight losing streak, and then has since then won 2 back. So he's back in the winning column. And the last couple of fights that I saw him in, he wasn't just winning, but he was dominating. Very impressive. He has good submissions and good grappling and good striking. Like he's just very well rounded. And I know you like the heavyweight division, so if you do feel like watching any of these fights, heavyweight fight Vitor Petrino is a name that I'm keeping my eye on. So
yeah, the fight that I have no interest in seeing next week unless Brad Tavares gets knocked out is him versus Anders.
I was about to bring that up because I know how much you just love Brad Tavares. I was going to say your favorite fighter, Brad Tavares, is fighting. You should watch that one.
He's a good fighter. I'll give it to him. He's a good fighter. He's make his bones, but he is such a D-bag.
Yeah, he's just under 67% win record, so he's kind of a gatekeeper.
Can't say it. Try again.
Charles Johnson is fighting, and he just fought at the end of January. This is a pretty quick turnaround, and he lost, too. He lost by TKO, and usually you get a medical suspension for a period of time after that. It looks like they didn't do a long one for him. He lost at the end of January. It's only the beginning of March, and he's already booked again. So it's interesting. The rest of this card is filled with a bunch of fights names I don't recognize or names I don't care about. So
that doesn't mean they won't be good fights.
Very correct.
Just mean that Vince won't be tuning in.
All right. Now, if I see online people saying, oh, man, this fight blew me away, I'll go back and watch the replays, but I'm not going to dedicate my Saturday evening to this one.
I'm going to forfeit my Saturday next week to make sure that we have content. I will be watching this from Brad Tavares being knocked out to Josh Emmett doing the knocking out.
Yep. I probably will, just for the heck of it, tune into the Vitor Petrino fight because I did hype up his name, and we've said it ever since the podcast started. We've been saying we want newer names to shake up the heavyweight rankings, and he's fighting an unranked person, but still, if you get an impressive enough win, that could give you a fight against someone who's ranked. So I'll probably tune into that one. I'll probably just pull it up on my tablet or something and just watch that one, maybe skip the rest. I think that one's kind of important. The rest of these, I don't know. If I hear there's some really good fights, I'll tune in.
The terrible thing about this is there are no names for you to pronounce to end out the episode. Most of them are pretty straightforward. Try a couple. Let's see what you find difficult here. Mosquito?
All right, so I've always had a really hard time pronouncing this guy's first name, but I do know how to pronounce his last name. And it's actually a fight I really like, and that's Oralby. He's going against Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, who is teammates with Sean Strickland. Miktibek, I've always struggled. I've heard his first name said out loud many times, and I just can't replicate it. But Oralby, actually, I might tune into that fight just because of how fun Oralby is. He's, I think, one of the most fun fights to watch. I saw him fight against Habeki back in October 2024, where he lost, but it was, even in a losing effort, is one of the most exciting fights I've ever seen, like top 10. And then since then, he's on a 2-fight win streak, and both of them by finish. It was a Kimura and then a KO punch, 7 by knockout, 6 by submissions is his total finish rate, and only 2 by decision. So he's actually a pretty fun fighter. I'll probably tune in for that one. But the reason why I mentioned his name is you want me to mispronounce the names. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Miktibek, but I know it's Oralby is his last name. What about this one?
Where is he from?
Let me look it up. Let's see here. He is from
Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan.
I think Kyrgyzstan's right.
Yeah, sounds about right. So he's fun to watch. He really is.
Yeah.
Like I told you, the fight he had is actually a fight he lost. If you go look, it was UFC 308. He went against Mateusz Rebecki, and it was a bloodbath of a fight. And it was a split decision because it was really, really close. And I would put it top 10 best fights I've ever seen. Ever.
I'll have to go watch it.
It
All
was
right.
amazing.
You got any other names you want to read off before we log out?
Well, before you watch the fight, let me warn you, are you squeamish with blood? Because it is also one of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen.
No, it's one of my favorite things, actually.
Watch that fight. When we get off this podcast, and for those of you listening, if you want to see a bloodbath, if you have Paramount subscription, you can pull up the archives of old fights. Go to UFC 308, October 26, 2024. Mateusz Rebecki versus Mikhtebek Orobai. One of the best fights of all time and one of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen. Anyway, you want me to mispronounce some more names?
Yep. You got any other ones that will tongue tie you?
Marwan Rahiki going against Harry Hardwick. Harry Hardwick is that one that had that really awesome KO a few months ago, if you recall, against a guy who apparently he worked with, like in the civilian world. Remember that one?
Interesting. No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, Harry Hardwick. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. I remember he fought. So he's like a safety guy for like construction, and then like there's a construction worker that he was fighting against, and it's actually someone he's done business with in the workforce. So they knew each other. And Harry Hardwick, if I'm not mistaken, that's the right fight. Let me confirm this real quick. Harry Hardwick. Let me just look him up. Is that him? Let me see.
Nope.
Maybe not that one.
Everything you said was nonsense.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a different fight entirely. Disregard. Is that? Hold on. Is that the guy who lost by leg kicks where he got? Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I had my names mixed up. That's not everything I just said is nonsense. I'm thinking of a completely different fighter. That's the dude who lost by just getting his legs kicked out from under him, like really, really, really bad for 3.5 minutes. And he had to get stretchered out of the building. And people were saying that was the worst UFC performance they've seen of all time. And he needs to be cut. And apparently he didn't get cut.
I remember that fight.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a completely different fight. I'll have to go back and look up the name now because it's going to bug me, but I'll do that later. I'll need to hold up the podcast for that. So I was thinking of the wrong name. I was shooting from memory, and it was the completely wrong name. Yeah, when I saw his face, I remembered that's a dude who just got his legs kicked into oblivion, and they had to carry him out on a stretcher. So yeah, I don't have high hopes for him. Abysmal. So he's going against Marwan Rahiki. Let's see. Bolaji Oki. I'm trying to get the harder names here. Luan Lacerda. Going against Hecher Souza. What about this? Beatrice Mesquita going against Montserrat Rendon.
Hey, you can't say things like Mosquito on the pound cast. We're supposed to keep it clean.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what a mosquito is, so
it does sound wrong though. It sounds wrong. So you know what also sounds wrong? Brad Tavares winning. And actually, there's one other thing that sounds wrong. I haven't talked about in a very long time, and it didn't dawn on me that I haven't talked about it in months. And I feel empty inside that I've been missing it. Another thing that's wrong is the entire concept of power slap.
Power slap's wonderful. You couldn't compete in power slap, but we know you're a future heavyweight champion.
I wouldn't want to. So I wanted to do this thing where every episode I signed off with a power slap joke or a slap fighting joke, and I guess it just got old and I stopped doing it, and then I forgot about it. But I'm bringing it back. That's something else that's ridiculous is power slap. Slap fighting in general, the whole sport. Power slap, the organization that does it under the Zuffa banner, ridiculous. So
I'd like to see you say that to the crazy Hawaiian's face.
He would swing at me with an open hand. I would shoot a double leg, take him down and choke him out, or armbar him. No, choke him out. Because if he is a slap fighter, he probably has really strong arms, so I'll just choke him out instead.
He's got a really big neck too. You might need to use your legs to choke him.
I could do that. Triangle choke.
Impressive. All right, that's it for the Ground and Pound cast this week. Tune in next week when Vince explains how to use your legs to ground choke.
It's called the triangle choke, man.
Triangle choke.
Triangle choke. It's easy. Yeah, more or less.
We'll be back.